So Sarah, thank you very much for talking to me today, and we're going to have a discussion around a culture of an early years setting. I just wondered if you could please tell me first a little about your culture at your nursery.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as our community culture is concerned, we serve quite a white British community, and I suppose we're very mindful of that. We obviously are very aware that we live in a modern Britain that's multicultural, multi-faith, multi-language, and as far as society is concerned. So I think for us as a nursery school, we have a real responsibility, I suppose, to ensure that children know about the kind of that diverse culture that is out there, and we want to make sure that everybody feels welcome into our little nursery, and that they know that they're respected for whoever they are, you know, whatever they kind of bring with them. So yeah, we just want to make sure that all children and their families have got those really close relationships with staff and feel like they belong with us, I suppose.
So what does it feel like to spend time in your nursery, would you say? That's an interesting question. I suppose I think it's a really exciting place to be. We come from the point of view that we want all children to succeed. We want them all to fulfil their potential when they're with us, to make progress. We want them to leave with a real love of learning, a real thirst to know more. So yeah, we then set our culture within school to try and achieve that, and we do that in lots and lots of various ways, really, starting with those relationships. That's it, everybody, relationships that staff have with children, the relationships they have with families, and then the relationships they have with each other. I think that's a really important thing as far as developing that culture is key. So yeah, I think once staff understand that what their part is within that culture, that wider culture for families and children, and then the culture that we're creating within school, I think that's important that they understand that and kind of recognise that. And do you think there are factors that underpin the culture that emerges in the early years?
Yes, yeah, I suppose there are. I think that respect and being reflective are really important for staff to have. Just being able to observe, see what's happening, be able to talk with one another, and kind of build from there. I suppose we've done it in our school as far as our pedagogy and principles are concerned. So we use that as our foundation. We always say that if you get that right, if a setting has a real solid pedagogy and principles of what they want for their children, for their families that come to us, then you can build on that, and anything else is kind of possible. We always say we keep the children at the heart of every decision, that they're very much at the heart of our principles and pedagogy, and then moving on from that, any decision that we make, whether we're thinking about taking children somewhere, whether we're thinking about introducing a new resource, tweaking or changing the routine, we always bring it back to the child and say actually what impact is it going to have, and kind of go from there, build from there, I suppose.
I think people might think that an early years provision concentrates on learning and development, and it does. So why do you think it's important to pay attention to the culture of a place as well as those practical factors?
I think because they bring so much. Obviously, you know, we're very aware that the children that come here come with a whole range of different experiences. You know, their families have that. We have some, we live quite close to the beach, and we know we have some families that will have never been there, and all of those things, all of the things children experience at home impact how they are when they come to us, whether they're confident to try new things, whether they've had experiences before. So I think really getting to know your community that your setting is in, and understanding the things that are important to that community, then help you, I suppose, to build on that. It's observing children, knowing their starting point, appreciating that everyone's is slightly different, and then deciding where you want to go from there, I think is so important. And yeah, I think that it helps children feel valued, it helps families feel valued, that you've got no expectation that they're going to
be somewhere, you know, that we'll just take children on a journey with us wherever they are when they start.
And do you think as part of that cultural setting that expectations of staff are important in terms of the children's outcomes?
Yeah, I think staff have got to be on board. They've got to, you know, almost sign up to your pedagogy and your principles, because they are the ones that are talking to the children. They're the ones that deal with families. They kind of give out that message. They can be the first port of call. You know, all staff. I think it's important that your office staff buy into that. Even your cleaners. It doesn't matter. Caretakers. For us, it's important that everyone understands what the culture is, what we're trying to achieve for our children, and that they understand the part within it. You know, it's to be the setting that we want to be. Everyone has a part to play. Everybody feels valued, just as we want the children to feel valued from wherever they're coming and from the families. So there's, I suppose we see it in two ways of what you hope children and families feel, that they feel involved and welcomed, and that you want to give them lots of first-hand experiences. I think we really go down that route because we're not sure of what all the children have had the opportunity to do. So yeah, there's that culture for children and families, and then there's the culture within our setting of, you know, who we are as people and how we interact with each other. We always say we're a very reflective staff, and we want to be open and honest with each other, and we all have days, we all have things that we're doing with children that might not work very well, or you might have planned something and it just doesn't work. And we want to create a culture within school that staff can kind of go, whether it's the staff room at the end of the day, and just go, do you know what, that wasn't great, but actually they know that they'll get support from their colleagues. They might have a suggestion of what they could do tomorrow if they've got a child and they're struggling with a behaviour. You know, being able to come together as a team and support each other again is key, because you can have some challenging days, and you need, I think, to feel, just as we want children to feel safe and secure, staff need that. But again, that doesn't happen by chance, and it's something that I think you need to work on. And as head, I feel like, you know, I kind of need to lead that. And
so as a leader, what sort of practical things might you put in place to keep the culture going and to keep it strong? I
think it's big. You've got to be mindful of it, and I think at times it's little things. So in my office, I always have my office door open unless I'm in a meeting, and staff know, you know, if Sarah's door's closed, she's probably either on the computer talking to someone or someone's in the office. And everybody feels, down to students, you know, I have students that come in and just walk in and kind of have a quick word, or, you know, I've got a question about this. And that again, I've built up over time, because I don't want to be somebody that's just seen as the head teacher or the boss. I don't like that word. You know, I want to be able to share my knowledge and experience, and I want to learn from them as well. So I think it's that being open. I really care about staff. We have a genuine focus, and I think that's a big part of just being, it's got to be genuine. We don't want to be tokenistic towards staff with their well-being. You know, if staff are struggling with workload, they know they can be open and honest. So it's having that open and honest conversations that build up over time. We often have new staff, we have new students, and that is one of the things I always try and make sure that I get to know them on that personal little things, like knowing who the children are and who the husbands are called. You know, it's little things like that make staff feel valued. So I think being open and honest, having that open door policy is really important. Being visible, you know, being at staff meetings, being at events with children, and just helping out. So if they're short staffed and they need someone to help at dinner, knowing that I'll be prepared to roll my sleeves up and go and help with things like that, I think helps them feel that, yeah, we are one team, and that's the key. But you do have to be aware of their well-being. I think, you know, at the moment there is a real emphasis. We spend a lot of time thinking about the well-being of children and families and putting support in for them, but I think it's important to look at your well-being of staff. It's a very demanding job, you know. Staff are pretty much on the go from the minute they come in till the minute they go home. And simple things like maybe just offering to make a cup of tea, or put things, maybe, I don't know, a bar of chocolate on a Friday or something, just to show that the values. And we do the things like we have performance management sessions, we have supervision sessions, so those are the things that I would kind of call your bread and butter. But I think it's that extra bit that
So it's a mixture really of the mechanics, your
Yes.
caring attitude, and your role modelling.
Yes. Yeah.
And how do you? There's so many people who have a vested interest in an early years setting, from parents, children, but staff, but people who are out in the community, or people who run it like managers or governors. How do you communicate your culture and get buy-in and encourage people to support that culture?
Yeah, again, I think there's a whole host of things going, you know, starting simple things like your Facebook page, your school website, Instagram, down to booklets, welcome booklets, newsletters that you give out, messages that staff might send parents on apps. It's being mindful that all of that kind of portray that, you know, they give out that image. And if our culture is important, which it is to us, that's got to be reflected through all of that. So you wouldn't want to see something very different on your Facebook to your school website or a newsletter. So I think it's just being mindful that everything fits within.
So consistency is important.
Yes, very, very much so. And again, you know, we have parents that come and they might be looking at me in nursery, or they might want to put a child in the baby room, and again, they often pick up on the fact that it's very they feel. I think parents often go on a feel, and then it feels the same whether they're going to the baby room in our 2s and 3s or main nursery. That it is a culture that you are giving them. The learning environment of children is the same. That there's that calm feeling across every room. That staff are engaged with children. So yeah, it's all of those things. And like I said, I think people just being mindful whether they're on the office or if they're going out for lunch and they might have a work coat on. It's just, you know, being mindful that you kind of that face of the school, I suppose.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Sarah. That's given us some interesting things to think about.
Thanks, Leslie.